So the topic that we are going to do today is called as modifiers. One of the most important topic, okay, in SAT after punctuations and transitions. This is one of the most important topics and very easy topic as well. It's not like it's a very difficult topic. What you need to understand is modifiers are basically just you just need to know how to identify if the sentence is a modifier or no. So for that, let's first understand what is a modifier. Okay. So what is a modifier? Is a modifier is a phrase or a word whose misplacement whose misplacement leads to the entire meaning of the sentence to change. Okay, that is the actual meaning of modifiers. So what exactly happens with modifiers is the meaning. Now when you read the sentence, it seems very much correct. Okay, but the problem is that the action, so in a sentence there is always something called as an action doer, that is your subject of the sentence, right? And then there's something called as the action receiver. Okay. Now there is no such rule that there should be only one action doer and only one action receiver in one sentence. There can be n number of action doers and action receivers. But the point is the correct action should be received by the correct subject. That is the whole point. So what happens with a modifier is when you read the sentence, it seems very much correct, but the action receiver and action doer. So the action is received by the wrong action is received by the wrong action doer. So let me give you an example and then you'll understand. So before I give you an example, modifiers are of two types, Nana. Now in the exam, they are not going to ask you if this is what kind of modifier is it and something like that. Why am I giving you or explaining you the types of modifiers so that you can identify if the question belongs to the modifier type or no? Okay, so we have two types of modifiers, dangling modifiers and misplaced modifiers. Okay, these are the two types of modifiers we have. Now, on the basis of these two modifiers, I'll just give you an example and you will be able to understand. Now, just look at this. So, if you look for an example, if I have to say, um, let's take this as example. An elementary school teacher the students loved Mrs. Blossom. Okay, suppose this is the sentence. An elementary school teacher, the student loved Mrs. Blossom. Now when you read the sentence, it seems correct. Okay, such sentences are called or come under the category of dangling modifier. Okay, now how do you identify if a sentence is a dangling modifier? You have something called as an introductory clause. Introductory clause. Now, what is an introductory clause? An introductory clause is something that is present in the sentence. Okay, it is there at the start of the sentence. Okay, it gives introduction but does not name the subject. It gives the introduction but does not name the subject. If you remember in your school speeches or in things like that, many a times what happens is they start with, I would like to welcome one of the most popular writers in the era today, and then they name that person. Okay, so similarly in written English also we have something called as introductory clause. So an elementary school teacher, Who's the elementary school teacher here? Mrs. Blossom, right? But after the comma, what did we do? We placed students. So actually, how to identify if it is a modifier question or if it's a dangling modifier is, after the introductory clause there is a comma, and after the comma you need to have the correct subject. Okay, now the subject that is there here is given as students. Are students the elementary school teacher? No. Mrs. Blossom is the elementary school teacher. So the sentence has to be an elementary school teacher, comma, Mrs. Blossom was loved by the students. Understood? So the logic is, how do you edit a modifier? After the comma, you place the correct subject. Be it dangling modifier or be it misplaced modifier, the tactic or the correct logic here is to place the correct subject after the comma. Did you understand my point? Have you understood till here? Anybody has any doubts? Anybody has any doubts? Now I know for many people it's just a revision, but for a few of you it is the first time. So please ask if you have any doubts. Any doubts till here?
No, ma'am.
100%, especially the new students. Aditya, Anushka has already had this topic. Kirtan, what about you? Devi Sri Prasad, you all were not there when I taught these topics. Dhanush, any doubts?
Nothing as of now.
Sunetra, have you understood, dear? Were you able to understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
this is the entire concept of a dangling modifier. So how do you understand if it's a dangling modifier? The best way to understand if it's a dangling modifier is to first of all see that there is an introductory clause. Because of the introductory clause, you have to have the correct subject after the comma, because you're introducing that subject, right? So you cannot have any other word apart from it. So when there is an introductory clause present, then right after the introductory clause, the clause about whom, I mean the subject about whom the introductory clause was, that needs to be present, and so you have to mention the subject right after the introductory clause. So because you have to mention the subject right after the introductory clause, so after the comma, just place the correct subject, and that's how you edit a modifier. Understood? That is dangling modifier. Now let's come. If you want to take a screenshot, please take a screenshot. I'm just going to erase this and then we'll move on to misplaced modifiers. Done? Are you all done? Can I erase it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, next we have something as called as the misplaced modifier. Now, what happens with a misplaced modifier is basically here the exact definition, that is the wrong action is received by the wrong subject. So look at this sentence here. After beating, comma, the baker seasoned the dough. Okay, this is what is given. Now, after beating, the baker seasoned the dough. Now, if you see here, what is this? This is action number one. Okay, and this is subject number one. This is action number two, and this is subject number two. So, if action one and subject one, so if you notice, action one is received by subject one, and action two is received by subject two. This is correct. Seasoning the dough is fine. But beating the baker, beating here actually refers to something called as kneading. Okay, you cannot knead a baker. So, what is the meaning of this sentence that actually comes out is the baker is lazy or he wasn't doing his work. So, somebody had to beat him up so that he will do his work. So, the wrong action is being received by the wrong subject. Understood? So you have to change that. How do you change that? After beating, the dough was seasoned by the baker. So again, if you see action 1, subject 1, action 2, subject 2. So what has happened here? Beating is, so summary, beating the dough is nothing but kneading the dough. So the correct action is being received by the correct subject. And here also we are saying seasoned by the baker. We do not say that the baker was seasoned. So the dough was seasoned by the baker. So automatically action 2 is being performed by the correct subject. Did you understand my point? So this is called as a misplaced modifier. In the misplaced modifier, what happens is the wrong action is received by the wrong subject. Understood my point? Got it? Am I
Yes.
clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is misplaced modifiers. So modifiers this way or that way. Okay, whatever is the type of the modifier, always remember after the comma, you're supposed to place the correct subject. Okay. Now I'll give you a sentence. Please identify if it's a dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier. And then let me know how you can edit it as well. Okay. Got it? I'm going to clear this. If you want to take a screenshot, please take a screenshot. So what is the ideology of misplaced modifier? The ideology of misplaced modifier is very simple, that the wrong subject is received by the wrong action is received by the wrong subject. Just remember that. And what is a dangling modifier? Dangling modifier is when you have something called as the introductory clause. Okay, got it? Now let me
Yes,
give
ma'am.
you an example. Okay, let me know if it's a dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier. Okay, Claude McKay was one of the important important poets of the Harlem that moved to New York City. Okay, please identify and what sort of a modifier is this? Is this sentence correct or is this sentence wrong? Or, if it is wrong, what sort of a modifier is it? Take 2 minutes time and please identify. Yes,
Mom,
yes. Who's going to speak up?
mom, the sentence is wrong,
Okay.
and I think it's misplaced modifier.
Which one?
Misplaced one.
Correct. Misplaced modifier. Okay, very good. And then what will be the correct sentence? What is the mistake in the sentence? The actual mistake is it says Claude McKay was one of the most important poets of Harlem. Till there, it's correct. That moved to New York City. This that refers to Harlem. Harlem is actually a work. It cannot move to another city. Whereas this person called Claude McKay can definitely move. Understood? So this action of movement is being received by the wrong subject. It has to be actually who's moving. Claude McKay is moving. So what will be the correct sentence? What will be the correct sentence? Any one of you?
One of the most important poets of Harlem, Claude McKay, moved to New York
Correct.
City.
One of the most important poets of the Harlem, comma, Claude McKay moved to New York City. There's one more way you can write it. Claude McKay was one of the most important poets of the Harlem. Okay. And then what you can do is you can just put a semicolon. Okay, and you can write he moved to New York City. So this is new, Nana. Nowadays, this is also coming in your options. Okay, that is separating the two sentences, separating one sentence into two different sentences, into two different correct sentences. So this is also one way that you can edit the modifier. Got it? Understood? Understood? Hello? Are you all there in the
Yes,
class?
ma'am.
Now I'm going to give you one more example. Please identify what sort of a modifier it is. Okay. Tired of my lateness. Tired of my lateness. The note was written in and handed by my teacher. Identify, please. Dangling or misplaced modifier. Yes, identify. Who's going to give the answer? Ambika? Dangling modifier, misplaced modifier. Ambika, Avishi, haven't heard your voices for days in the class. Are you all there? Kirtan, can you identify for us if it's a dangling modifier or a misplaced modifier? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Kirtan, are you there in the class? Avishi, Ambika.
Yes, Miss. Miss, is it misplaced?
It's not misplaced. It's a dangling modifier because see,
Yes,
tired
but
of my.
what's the introductory?
Correct.
That's it.
Very good, Avishi. So introductory clause doesn't has to be defining the subject only. Okay. So here, tired of my lateness. Okay. Can a note be tired of somebody's lateness? It cannot be, right? What is the other subject that you have? The teacher, right? In the sentence. In the sentence, you either have note as one of your subjects or you have teacher as your subject. Okay. So whenever you have an introductory clause, you can also ask the question who or what. Okay, so who was tired of my lateness? The teacher. Note cannot be tired, right? So the sentence is going to be tired of my lateness, comma, the teacher wrote and handed over the note. Got it? Understood?
Yes, Miss. So, Miss, it's a dangling
Correct.
modifier.
It's a dangling modifier. So it is not necessary that the introductory clause will be in its traditional form itself. I have picked up this example from one of your SAT papers, recent SAT papers. Are you understanding my point? So you need to identify when you're looking at a modifier question. Remember to ask questions. Remember that the sentence will seem correct, but again, the action receiver and action doer, there will be a slight, non-sync. Avishi, you said that it is a misplaced modifier. Let's assume if it's a misplaced modifier, what will be the correct version of the answer then, Avishi? Where is the second action dear here for it to be a misplaced modifier? Did you understand what I'm trying to explain?
Yes, miss. Yes, miss.
All of you, have you all understood what I'm exactly trying to explain? So please always understand this one point. When it comes to modifier questions, it's very important that you check the action receiver and the action doer. Got it? Understood? Am I clear? Kirtan, why are you not responding?
Yeah, ma'am.
Are you there in the class?
Yes, ma'am. I am.
Have you all understood?